Howdy, Eknolo H2Os, Roller Bros, and idiotic animates alike. I'm your guide Q. Welcome back to a fresh edition of Dating Hell. We're gonna get into some really bad dating stories. You know, sometimes it might feel really dark to be single, but just feel good that you're not in these situations. I hope you guys are doing super well, and let's get into the stories. One date, years of harassment. So this was a bit before Tinder was big, so I can't even blame Tinder. This was Plenty of Fish about 3 years ago. You may wonder, why would this girl even remember a date from 3 years ago? Well, for one, it was quite memorable on its own, but also the guy reminded me a few weeks ago. So, I was 28 or so, and I matched with this nice, smiley guy we will name N. He was 26, 5'10", and a registered nurse from what I recall. We chatted for a few days, and finally went out for a dinner date. He was a few minutes late, but he drove 30 minutes to my city, so it was alright. Once I see him, I find the first lie. He is 5'5" or so, definitely shorter than me, and definitely nowhere near the stated height on the app. I move past it, but I'm already starting to get a bad vibe. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being 5'5", but making a 5-inch lie about your height, very, very sketchy. Let's continue. We go into this bar/restaurant, I get a burger, and I'm trying to make conversation, but he just intensely stares at me. This was to the point where I had to ask at least twice if there was something wrong. He replied twice saying that I was just so beautiful he couldn't believe it. The first time I thought he was just trying to compliment me, but it kept going on, the staring and excessive comments. He asked me for a second date 2 minutes into dinner, to which I said it's too early to tell. Yeah, you'd think so. We continue to talk and I find out he's actually 34. Why he lied about being 8 years younger, who knows? I'm starting to get upset and I asked if anything on his profile was real. He said he is a nurse, but then confessed that he lives with his mom. Yup, as a 34-year-old man. Don't be too judgy, but this guy is a sketchball. He bought an expensive car, so he couldn't afford to pay rent, so at this point I'm way over it. He lied about his age, his height, his living situation, and he's also creeping me out. So I finished that burger so fast and I said I had to go home. He insists on walking me to the car, he tries to kiss me, it was awkward and I moved away after a second. He asked about a second date again and I say I'll think about it and leave. I drove 10 minutes to my house and guess what I find when I get there? I have 5 missed calls, a voicemail, and a handful of text messages. I text back to see if he has an emergency or if I forgot something. He says everything's okay, but would like to talk to me. I say I don't have time to talk, but I could answer whatever question he has through text. He keeps calling non-stop despite this. I then open the first voicemail where it sounded like he was crying, asking, "Why won't you go on a date with me? Is it because I'm not a doctor? Do you think you're better than me?" At that point, I realize I'm dealing with crazy, so I tell him again through message, "Thanks for dinner, this isn't a good fit, good luck." I turned off my phone, I blocked his number after a couple more days of voicemail that I didn't even bother to listen to. For months, he got different numbers and tried to communicate with me. 1 week into it, he sent me a picture of something he had bought for me, some girly souvenir thing. He didn't have any other info about me, so at least that was it. Every few months, I'll get an Instagram or WhatsApp request from him, and I just ignore it. Last month, he texted me again from a new line, reminding me how I clearly liked him at that date, that I even kissed him. I told him this was harassment, that I didn't like it, and that he needs to respect my decision and have some dignity. He apologized, said he was just hospitalized for depression, and I said I was sorry, but I couldn't help him, and that he needs to get therapy and not harass women. Since then, he tried to add me on Instagram again, and I still have him blocked on my phone. I was very turned off by online dating for a while. Since then, I've met some other needy people, but no one like this. I now never go on a dinner date, just a coffee or a drink, so easy exit if needed. Okay, major piece of advice to anybody that's trying to get into online dating, please just don't lie about anything major in your life. Like, yeah, maybe it's okay to omit certain things. Like, yeah, maybe you live at home and you don't want to open with that, or maybe you're not working the job that you really want to, and you just don't want to put that on your page. But don't say you're like 6'7" and built like LeBron James if you're 5'8" and kind of chubby. Don't say you live in a mansion if you live in a rundown apartment. Like, just don't lie about the major stuff, and that's like almost the least of this dude's problems, to be fair. I'm actually pretty glad to hear that even though this dude was clearly crazy, he just wasn't that tier of crazy where he would have gone farther and tried to like find where you live or come visit you or something like that. So I'm glad he got out of this situation relatively unscathed. Alright, this one is entitled Date Night Surprise, and you know, a surprise on a date could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing, but based on where this is posted, I do not have a good feeling about this. I had just turned 18 and decided to get a Tinder account. I had recently gotten out of a 2-year dating hiatus after getting out of a pretty toxic and rough relationship. I matched with this really attractive girl named Stephanie. I messaged her and we began talking and really hit it off. We ended up exchanging numbers. I called her a few times, but every time we spoke on the phone, she always sounded distorted and her voice seemed very off. Whenever I asked her why this was, she told me her phone was broken and she was sick. After a few weeks of texting back and forth, we decided to set up a date. I asked her if she wanted to go out to an Italian restaurant, but she said no. After listing off a bunch of ideas and her saying no to all of them, I asked her what she wanted to do. She asked me to come to her place Friday night and we could watch Netflix and order some pizza. I was kinda weirded out by the fact that she invited a random person over her house that she hadn't even met yet, but I was really into her, so I stupidly agreed. Looking back at it, I know how stupid I was. So, the date night finally arrived and I was excited, but also very nervous. I pulled up to Stephanie's house and immediately got bad vibes. Her house looked really creepy. All the lights are off and the rest of the neighborhood looked dead. At this point, I should have heeded all the warning signs and just gotten into my car and drove home. But, like the stupid teenager I was, I walked up to her front door and knocked. No one answered the door at first, so I knocked again, and the same result, no answer. Oh yeah, and did I mention it was the middle of January in New England? Needless to say, I was freezing my ass off and frustrated. Just as I turned around to get back in my car, I heard someone unlock the front door. I turned around and as soon as it opened, a massive man was standing in the doorway. He was at least 6'5" with a white tank top and sweatpants. He stared me down and didn't say a word. At this point, I was frozen and didn't even know what to say. I knew I had the correct address. I managed to get a few words out of my mouth. Is Stephanie home? The large man said, "Yeah, I'm her brother. She's downstairs waiting for you. Come on in." He opened the door wider and motioned me to come inside. I looked behind the crack in the door hinge, and to my complete horror, there was someone hiding behind it like they were waiting to pounce on me once I walked through the door. At this point, I knew I had made a massive mistake, so I immediately made a mad dash to my car. I ran into my car, locked the door, and pulled out of there like a bat out of hell. I was in such a panic I even knocked over a few garbage cans on my way out. When I got home, I did some further research into the house and who actually lived there, and it turned out the house had been abandoned for over 6 months, and no one lived there. After this revelation, I reported to the police and they told me they would investigate. At the time of this post, the people involved have not been caught nor identified. Needless to say, I deleted Tinder that very night and will just meet women the old-fashioned way from now on. Yeah, if I were single again and trying to online date, I'd definitely be looking to get some video chat going on with any person before I agreed to meet up, especially going to their house. Like, I know you were 18, but like, damn, this was incredibly short-sighted. I'm so glad that nothing went down, and at first I was like, how did they not get caught or identified? But they probably left that abandoned house like the second after you went away because, you know, they probably figured you were calling the police and freaked out. So this is terrifying, knowing that these guys are still out there and that they were clearly trying to kidnap you for some reason. That's just what? Hey, if you liked the creepy Craigslist misconnection series, I did a whole live stream looking at misconnections in Mobile, Alabama, and it's probably the best. Those are some of the best misconnections I've ever had. I had an absolute blast. It was really fun hanging out with a lot of you guys. I'd like to thank our top tier members, Allison B, 4 Jared at Connor G, I'm a Stuffed Goat, Sub to Hoover, Kaija Bay, Cast, Tasha K, and Catco, as well as everyone else you see on your screen. If you'd like to join the membership membership crew. You can hit the join button below this screen. You'll support the channel while also getting some perks depending on which tier you choose. I hope you guys are all doing super well out there. I'll be trying to do some more live streams, get, you know, a little bit more intimate with you guys. Skate on to the best of your abilities. Make sure you're drinking a sufficient amount of water. You're killing it. You're wonderful. You deserve good things in life, and I'll see you very soon. Peace out, Cub Scouts.